Hey guys, so I've never done this before, but I thought that it would be hopefully helpful or at least interesting to start a conversation from someone who's not black or white or American, but living in America and seeing what's happening in America right now. If not for the past 400 years. If you know me, you know that I have friends of all different races and religions, whether black or white, Asian, Latinos, Muslim. So I have a lot of personal opinions on what's happening, and personally I have been feeling very emotional and I don't think that there's even a word that can really describe the feeling right now, and I don't think that is unique for me either. I think that we are all feeling some sort of very uneasy emotions, whether it's sad or angry, disappointed, confused, or all of that. But I do want to try to be as objective as possible to start a discussion, a thoughtful discussion, because I believe that thoughtful discussions will help us find common ground, which then will help us identify a solution from that common ground and leads to unified actions, because the goal is change. The goal is change. It's not about who's right, who's wrong. It is change. What's really upsetting right now that I'm seeing is when black people ask you or us to fight for Black Lives Matter. Many people argue that it should be all lives matter. Think about it for a second. Think about when you have a really bad day and you tell someone that you had a really bad day, and their first response to you is, well, you know what, I have a bad day too. Or, just to be clear, sorry, it wasn't my fault. How would you feel Just think about it. How would you feel in that situation? All you need them to say is to ask you what happened. Listen and be empathetic with you, with the fact that you have a really bad day. And then offer to see if there's anything that they can do to help you feel better. Or even if they cannot help or don't know how to help, just listen. Listen first to understand. It's like we are trying to compete with each other on who has the toughest life, who has the most struggles, who's the least privileged. Really? Do you actually want to compete on that race? Because honestly, Black people won, hands down. And I cannot imagine that people actually want to compete in that race. I'm not white, but being Asian, I can also see myself having a lot of privilege. Much more than a Black person. Even in America, we are considered the model minority. Maybe because we are quiet. Or most of us are workaholics. Or they think that we are good at math. I sucked at math when I was in high school, by the way. But that's all stereotypes, and I acknowledge that these stereotypes really play to my benefits living in America. Maybe not as privileged as a white person, but clearly more than a Black person. When I walk out on the street, no one would try to avoid me or think that I'm dangerous or think that I carry a gun. Well, obviously, until everyone thinks that, we carry the Chinese virus. That's a different story, but let's not talk about it in this conversation. Just saying, even during this time, when I think that Asian people are also fighting so much against the discrimination and racism because of the pandemic, we are still much more privileged than Black people. Because sure, like if we walk out, they may try to avoid us now, or sadly a lot of people get abused as well. But the death toll for Black people with regards to the pandemic itself, or just in general, before the pandemic, they always top the list. And we want to compete with that. It's crazy. Like everyone's trying to put their struggles on the scale to compete with Black people now. And I totally understand that you have good people and bad people in every races, every country, every religion. Not all white people are bad, and not all Black people are good, or not all police officers are violent. But based on what happened, we know that is wrong. So let's just admit that is wrong. I think that every time when we see that there's a fire, we tend to worry and complain about the smoke, because that's what we see first. That's what annoys us, because we smell it. And we just become so busy trying to get rid of the smoke, but we never spend time or never try to put the effort in identifying where the fire starts, to stop it. Because it is harmless to deal with the smoke, but it's dangerous to get closer to the fire. But without having enough courage and bravery to take another step, trying to identify where the fire starts and try to stop it from where it starts. The fire will only get and become bigger and perhaps years from now, we are still gonna find ourselves complaining and worrying and trying to get rid of the smoke. That's the same thing with racism against black people in America. That leads to riots and violence. And I'm not in supportive of riots or violence. And that's not right either, you know. But do you understand that if there's no fire, there will be no smoke? And if there's smoke, it means that there's a fire. And that's the smoke that we are looking at. But the fire starts from inequality, from racism in America. So yeah. I stand with anti-racist people. That's where I stand. I stand with everyone who's against racism in America. I stand with everyone who's angry at this, but try to take another step further to make change in America and bring justice to black people. That's basic human rights.